Right? The dar of establishment is the hereafter. So these friends of Allah, whose hearts Allah awakens, right? What do they begin to do? They begin to prepare for the hereafter. How obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? By detaching themselves from the matters of the dunya, by giving to charity, by being generous, by studying the sacred knowledge and teaching it to others and applying it within their lives. One of the great companions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Sayyidina Abu Darda radiyallahu anhu, Sayyidina Abu Darda radiyallahu anhu, who moved from Medina to Munawwara to Damascus, and he was one of the greatest teachers of Quran al-Kareem in the Masjid of Damascus. And he was known from amongst the Sahaba to be a great zahid, a man who had detached himself of the affairs of this dunya. One day, a friend of his came to visit him from a distance. And he came into his house and he saw nothing inside his house. He saw nothing. No furniture, nothing. Absolutely empty, just four walls. And he said to Abu Darda, he said, "Where's your furniture? Right? Where's the furniture of your house?" And Sayyidina Abu Darda radiallahu anhu said, "I've sent it to the next world." He said, "I've sent it to the next world." He says, "This is how I live. This is enough for me." So they live life of kifaya. And what's kifaya? To live a life of sufficiency. What's enough? That's enough. And sufficiency is what the Prophet ﷺ asked for his own family. Right? Now a father wants the best for his children. A father wants the best for his children. And the greatest for his children. But look at what the Prophet ﷺ prayed for his own family. He said, "Allahumma ja'al quda ali Muhammadin kifata." The Prophet ﷺ said, "Oh Allah, make the sustenance and provision of the family of Muhammad ﷺ just sufficient and enough, not beyond that. Sufficient and enough. Sufficient and enough." So people whose hearts are awakened and they become zuhad, then they don't want to accumulate too much of this dunya. They feel it to be a burden on them. They take suffice in that which is enough and they content with it. Right? Content with it. And this is something which is missing from the hearts now, is contentment. People are not content with that which they have. I'll give an example. If you have a young child, and you give that child some food, you present that child with some food, a particular type of food, and the child begins to eat. Whilst the child is eating, you bring another type of food and put it in front of the child. What's going to happen? The child will stop eating the food that they're eating and want to move to the next food. Whilst they're eating the next food, halfway through you bring another type of food, the child will stop eating that and move over to the next. Right? Why? The child is the perfect example of the human nafs, the perfect example of the human ego. The human ego wants to jump from one thing to another to another. This is why Imam al-Busiri radiallahu anhu, he said, وَالنَّفْسُ كَالطِّفْلِ وَالنَّفْسُ كَالطِّفْلِ. That the nafs, that the ego is like a child. The ego, the nafs is like a child. The more you give it, the more it wants. The more it sees, the more it desires. This is why the people of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to break and cut down their desires, they don't want to see too much. Right? They don't want to see too much. Is that clear? وَالتَّأَهُّ لِدَارِ الْقَرَارِ. So they prepare for the next abode, for the next world, for the next life.